Welcome back, everyone, to R2Kast number 94. Only 6 more to go. Is that right? I don't know. That sounds like it should be right, but there's probably some kind of anomaly in there that means it's wrong. Close to the 100th episode, starting obviously over 2 years ago now. Had some fantastic guests on over the years. Examples of that would be last week we spoke to a guy, Henry Bunn in Cameroon, who spoke about a community farm that they have there that's feeding about 370 families a month, which is quite insane. They're talking about honey, they're talking about milk, they're talking about various crops, cassava, wheat, and so on and so forth. So that was interesting. The next episode, which I think I actually said was supposed to be this week, but there was a problem with a link for the filming, is Thomson Armstrong. He'll be talking about R&D tax credit opportunities for your business. So if you're listening in and you have a business and you're wanting to try and get some extra money or free up some money, that is the one to listen to with Thomson Armstrong. But today we have somewhat of a wall breaker, I would say, in the sector. Knocks a lot of walls down and creates a lot of opportunities for herself. And it's sort of been a name that ever since I've been involved at all in the sort of rural Instagram side of things has been someone I've been aware of. And that person is Holly Thomson, who's coming on today. Some of you may know of her as the starter of In the Country magazine, various other things. You've probably seen her on Instagram. But Holly, would you like to say hello?
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for having me. I feel like a little bit of a fraud on this podcast because I'm not a farmer. But I'm excited. I've been out of the industry and the kind of circle for what seems like forever. And I'm just very excited to have been invited on to talk about what I'm doing and what I've been up to.
Just before we get started with another episode of the R2Kast, I would like to thank our primary sponsors, A-Plan Rural. A-Plan Rural are heavily involved on the social media scene in the ag space with 120,000 followers on Instagram. They use this following to host social media takeovers with farmers throughout the country to showcase their stories. They also post to their rural community blog with further stories about these people in the industry. On top of this, they like to support initiatives that are championing the British agricultural industry, such as myself. So thank you to A-Plan Rural for that.
Not at all. It's an absolute pleasure. Looking forward to the episode. And you say you're not a farmer, which is absolutely true, but you are busy. If you're not, you make a very good job of making it look like you are, and I'm pretty certain the case is that you are. Just for those listening, Holly, could you give us a bit about your background? You know, what was a young Holly doing? What was a young Holly wanting to do? A wee bit like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have, ever since I can remember, I have been dead set on working with horses. That was 100% what I was going to do. My parents would try their hardest to kind of dissuade me from it. It didn't really work. So I worked with horses, ever since I left school, in between college and things like that. And it was just, yard stuff to kind of just keep me going, earn a bit of pocket money. But I think I was talking to somebody recently and, sort of saying, how did you get into the kind of the country life, the country way of life? And really, I think, and I'm sure it's the same for a lot of people who aren't necessarily born into it, when you reach a certain age after school and college and university, you can pick your social circle, you can pick your hobbies, and you can pick where you choose to spend your time and who you spend your time with. And for me, it was very much around the horses, and then through the horses led into farming and that lifestyle. So my background's always been horses. My dad grew up on a farm in Scotland, so
Excellent.
Yep, so that's kind of maybe a little bit in the blood, the love of it all. But predominantly my background is horses. I spent 7 months in New Zealand working on a dairy farm. So that's probably my real farming experience. And then since New Zealand, I've, as you say, been busy breaking down walls.
Well, yeah, and we'll get into that. There's a lot to that side of things. First off, as the Scotsman, I have to ask, where in Scotland?
It's a place called Netherley by Stonehaven near Aberdeen.
Okay, right, okay, yeah. Well, embarrassingly, I've never been north of Dundee.
Okay.
So yeah, anything above that, I'm like,
It was a really traditional, really, small little working farm. And then as my grandparents got older and couldn't manage it, and their children, like my uncles, they didn't want anything to do with farming. So as they got older, it kind of dwindled off, and they all went and had their own lives. But my dad's the only one that moved out of Scotland, so the rest of them are still up there.
Very nice, very nice. And that sort of lifestyle for youngsters, in particular girls, I think it'd be fair to say, horses is everything. Yeah, horses. Now, I'll be honest, right? I don't mean to blow my own trumpet here, but I did actually ride a horse 3 times, and I slid off 5. I just could not get my feet in those things. Stirrups? No, that's the wrong thing. Yeah, see, I know my stuff. And Mum tells this story embarrassingly. So if you're watching, Mum, thank you for this and ruining my social standing every time you tell me this when I tell my friends this when I was a youngster. I apparently was sat atop what I thought was like a Clydesdale, but was basically a pony, or maybe even smaller. And apparently I just looked as confident as you could, as I always did, and basically just looked the same, probably minus the beard. And Mum just watched me sort of
topple over.
This is me going, like, this is not for me. So it was quite clear early on that the horses weren't for me. But the reason I'm saying this is so many people are into that side of things, but don't pursue a career in it. You mentioned college. Was that equine based, or was that unrelated at all?
Initially, it wasn't. Initially, it was sixth form, because again, my parents were very kind of passionate about me trying to pursue something else, which might then support me in having that as a hobby, rather than a complete and utter lifestyle. Because my mum would often say, by the time I'm 50, I'm going to have a hunchback and like skin like leather and just so initially it was sixth form, and I really hated it. I did 1 year, so AS levels, which is, we have like A levels down here, AS levels, and so I did 1 year, failed quite miserably, and just turned around and said, look, no, this is my decision now. I'm going to go and do horses. And I did a level 3 City and Guilds diploma in horse care and management, passed with distinction, clearly my thing. And and then ever since then it's just been working with horses around that and building it up. And then now I run a livery yard and absolutely love it, but definitely enjoy getting away whenever I can.
I think no matter how much you enjoy whatever you're doing, like, I love my job, but it's the only Easter holidays and I'm quite looking forward to it. I think that's always the case, and it's got to be. I have a completely off the wall question that is nothing to do with food, farming, rural life at all. The only thing I know about sixth form is they mention it in in-betweeners. How does it work? So we don't have that up here. Is that like your 6th year at high school and you then go to college, or how does that go?
Yeah, because I remember it's different in Scotland. And so, you finish school here at, I think, 16. And then from there, you can go to college, or you can go to sixth form. So you can just go to college, or you can go like apprenticeships and things like that. But sixth form is basically the 17 and 18. So your A levels. So from your GCSEs, you do your AS level, your A level. I feel like I'm not qualified to explain this because I failed so miserably. But my understanding of it is, you do your AS level, then you do an A level. Or it was when I was at school, because that's a few years ago now. I know that like GCSEs down here have changed to like a number system, which I think you have up there. Do you? Number system?
Yes, we only have numbers. Yeah.
So we used to have like A, B, C, D, E. It's not. It's numbers now. So that's how it works. So your AS level is first, and then you top it up with an A level to complete the whole A level. So I didn't do that.
I've been told a few times before we come on this, they're like, we spoke about something I really didn't expect, and I'm sure one of those was the qualification system in English schools. Here, you never know what you're going to get on the R2Kast. Before we get into sort of like what I guess a day in the life of Holly and a year in the life of Holly is at the minute, tell us about New Zealand. A lot of people go to New Zealand. What made that happen? Why was New Zealand on the cards?
I'll be honest, and I'm sure a lot of people are the same. New Zealand for me was a way to get away from here. I had no idea really what I wanted to do. I obviously wanted to do horses, but financially that was always going to be quite tricky. It was never going to earn me that much, and I just didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I think, you know, you can be a little naive and silly sometimes at sort of 18. So I just needed to get away and experience something different and kind of stand on my own 2 feet. And I said at the time, during and after, that I really found myself when I was away, because it was the first time I'd been away, you know, away from my family, friends, and I really had to kind of get on with it. I flew out on my own for the first month, and it was absolutely life-changing. I didn't intend to work on a dairy farm. I didn't intend to get into dairy farming. The job was as a rider and looking after horses, and effectively an au pair, which I'd also never done, but it was on a dairy farm. And literally less than 48 hours after I arrived, I was in the shed doing like herd testing with the staff, and it was an 80 bale rotary, and I think the herd was like 1,800 cows on this one farm. And so that was my first experience of dairy farming in New Zealand.
That's quite a baptism by fire.
Yeah, so I've been told since then.
Yeah, 80 bales, pretty notable.
It was amazing though, and the team were really, really lovely. But yeah, I had no idea what to expect, and I did genuinely fall in love with it. It didn't take me long, and I much preferred that over the horse riding out there. I then left that job to pursue dairy farming full time for the rest of my time out there. So yeah, I definitely fell in love with it.
So that's probably the first time in your life that you've been like, oh, there's something aside horses. And obviously, like you said, you left that job to go dairy farming entirely. Was at that stage were you like, oh, maybe dairy farming is what I want to pursue?
Yes and no. I definitely knew it's what I wanted to do out there. And when I actually came back, I looked into it here, but it's very different here. From my understanding and my searching, the attitude of people as well is very different. Obviously, you know, it's a different place, it's different lifestyle, culture, everything. But dairy farming here was not the same as it was out there, and I knew I wouldn't enjoy it quite the way that I had. So I kind of settled back into the horses to figure out what I wanted to do. Again,
it's very much more efficiency driven in New Zealand, just without subsidy and that. But yeah, here quite interesting. You know, that was the thing: horses, and then suddenly, of all things, milking cows was something.
Yeah, and I guess like my take on it was probably, you know, again a little bit naive, less sort of farming perspective and more lifestyle perspective. You know, as much as I was very involved in the farm when I was working full time, I wouldn't know the ins and outs of all the, you know, yields and things like that. But I did know when I came back here that the two were very different.
Yeah, and you mentioned lifestyle there, Holly. That's sort of, well, certainly sort of haven't followed you for a while. It's sort of what you've based, well, your career, whatever, on is just lifestyle and also selling that lifestyle from a journalistic perspective. So which we'll touch on in a minute. You've came back from New Zealand. When was that roughly?
I think that was 2015 now. 2015 into 2016, I think.
It feels so long ago, doesn't it?
It feels so long ago. But I want to say 2015.
I mean, like, I think we're pretty much the same age. Like, I look back to I started uni in 2014, and I'm like, yeah, it's like 5 years ago. It's 10, you know, like
crazy, absolutely crazy.
When did
I just don't know where it goes. It's terrifying.
And do you know what's even more terrifying is the fact that you're saying that, and I say it as well. I don't know where the time goes. I used to think only 55-year-old people said that. Like,
yeah. And
you know,
when you like, I often have this conversation with my friends. Like when I was say 17, I would imagine me at my age completely different, like in a completely different place to how I am now. Or when I would look at 30-year-olds, I'd be like, oh, they've got their life together, they know what they're doing. Couldn't be farther from it. The 30-year-olds I know have no idea.
yeah, late 20s, basically retired, you know. Oh my god. Yeah, it really does hit you fast. It's quite insane how quick it does. You've come back in 2015, 16, whatever it was. What was next?
So that was my mum begging me to get a normal job. That really was what happened. I moved back home, and she really tried to persuade me to get a normal job just for a bit. And I kind of, I was moving back into the family home, so I was sort of, I'll try it, I'll have a look. And I started looking, and I just got no after no after no for office jobs. And I was doing some freelance sort of riding along the side just to tick things over, but there was nothing coming in, and obviously it was a little bit worrying because you need money. And I'd applied for a job at an equestrian magazine, which I'd completely forgotten about because I was just getting so many no's. And I was at another yard doing their work, which I'd kind of given into and accepted that this was probably how it was going to look for the foreseeable. And they called me and they invited me for an interview, and I accepted and I went. And I genuinely think the only reason that I got the job is because I was horsey, and the team was horsey, and the nature of the job and the magazine was equestrian. But I had zero office experience. I'd never worked in an office before, so I'm forever grateful for them for giving me a chance. And I actually worked at that magazine and that publisher's for work experience at school. So it was a little, like, a roundabout experience. But yeah, I was there for about 6 months as an ad sales assistant. I did no writing. I had no say in any of the design or anything like that. I was purely there to sell adverts. So it was eye-opening, good experience, but I didn't enjoy it. That wasn't what I was going to be doing. And kind of from there, we would get competitors' magazines in, and I just felt that as someone that enjoyed, all aspects of the countryside and the country way of life, shooting, farming, horses, food, cars, everything, fashion, nothing spoke completely to someone my age at the time. And again, I just couldn't find anything, and kind of progressed in my role, and months went on, and I just sort of thought, well, why can't I create something? Why can't I give it a go? And then that led into me telling mum again, that's I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to be doing this.
It sounds like that's been the theme.
I do feel sorry for them. Bless them. They must have the patience. I just do not know. I don't know how they put up with me.
Well, that's not the case. I'm sure that's not the case. So like during school, you sort of done work experience at this place, and then now you're not involved in the journalism side, but you're in that game. You're seeing how it's working. You're seeing what happens. You're starting to think, why can't I create something? Is a magazine what you're thinking, or are you just thinking, I just want to be creative? I don't know how I want to create, but I want to create something.
Yeah, so initially it was just to be creative. I started a blog, which I started whilst I was working, and it was purely just me writing bits and bobs. I remember actually writing an article that went viral with all my friends who were farmers at the time, and it was shared by, I think, New Zealand Farming, another big Facebook farming group.
It's a massive account, yeah.
It was like something like 10 or dating a farmer, what it's like to date a farmer, and it was just a bullet point article, but it went viral. And at the time, and for essentially the whole way through my magazine career, I wrote under Polyella, which is how a lot of people probably know me. And so I'd written this under that, so no one knew it was me. And it was crazy. I was just getting tagged in it so many times, and I was like, oh, hi. But I was not embarrassed, but I'm quite a shy person. I've kind of gotten better over the years, but definitely back then I didn't want anybody to know. So yeah, I'd started a blog, and initially that was all I was going to be doing, and it kind of picked up momentum and support, and people agreed that there was nothing out there like what I was talking about. And then that's kind of where the idea blossomed from, really.
And it's funny you say about that viral thing there, because I don't know if you know Amy Wilkinson. No, she's she's great. She's very funny. She writes for the Scottish Farmer here and there. But like at the end of the day, she is a farmer. Like she's a full-time farmer. But I had her on the podcast, I don't know, probably about 6 months ago now. Time flies. But I was aware of her for like 2 years because there was this post, and you might have seen it, that went out about Christmas time. I think it was the 17th, of just she's ginger. That might help because it sort of plays into the whole thing. This ginger girl taking a selfie with like tons of carrots sitting behind her, you know, just in this massive pile, saying like these are wasted because they're wonky. Yeah. That's Amy. And she wasn't like she's Instagram now, she's a journalist, whatever, but she wasn't that at the time. And she was like, it was so surreal. Like I wasn't aiming for this and I wasn't really ready for it. And she was like, you know, if it was now, I would have maybe capitalized on it and been like, whatever. But it's quite surreal when you don't mean it. You know, like,
I mean, I didn't intend it, and in a way, I was kind of protected by it because it was not my name. And I, in honesty, for me, I don't think I'd have liked it at that point in time. Obviously, now I would be much more equipped to deal with it. But a lot of people say, you know, who have gone viral, say that it's not quite what you expect it to be. There's a lot that comes with it. So yeah, it was crazy. I mean, the funniest thing for me was just seeing people that I knew tagging each other and thinking, oh, you know, this is brilliant. Like this girl knows. Or I think one of the funny ones was like, you know, it just like, what was it like? I don't know. She'd be a keeper or something like that, and I was just like, only if you knew.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's exactly what Amy said. Her sister was like, "There's so many guys sharing this." Like, you know, that's exactly what she said on the pod. Yeah, it's quite surreal. It is a really surreal idea. The whole idea of going viral, like, is so normal to us, but 20 years ago, that just wasn't a thing. Like, it's quite. But I remember I put a post up about the price of wool, and you know, it was like something like 800, well, roughly give or take 800 kilos of wool in the bags, and it was going to be 83 quid. And I'd done all the math and all this and stuff, and it didn't go viral, but it got out to about 1 million people. And I remember sort of saying this to my dad, and he's like, 1 million? I'm like, yeah, like it's big, but it's not like big. And he's like, that's huge. And I'm like, well, I guess it is. You know, it's quite, it is weird. So you've got that first taste of going viral. You're not actually sure if you like it or not. You're starting to write a wee bit here and there. When did you start? Well, you've already started thinking, but when did it actually come about? You were like, right, I am going to make this thing. I don't know what it is yet. It became a magazine, but when did that happen?
It's tricky, really. I think it just naturally evolved. I'm quite an ambitious person, and I have a wild imagination that drives myself. I drive myself insane with it, and I think it literally just evolved from what was a blog into what else can I do? You know, how can I make this bigger? How can I make this better? And I'm very much, you know, a tangible person. I love books. I don't necessarily read them, but I love having them. I've always liked magazines, and so the idea just kind of evolved. And yeah, I mean, I was just like, why not? Why can I not try it? And I think because it was very much, the team were lovely, the team were fantastic, can't fault them at all, but we, you know, I was very much in the advertising department. There was no scope for me to have any input in anything else. And I think that kind of limiting atmosphere maybe kind of drove that idea even more, because I knew that I wouldn't get that opportunity in that space. And so yeah, I mean, looking back now, it sounds awful that I don't remember exactly when that moment was, but it just kind of evolved, and then it just snowballed, really.
Going from a blog, which is something literally anyone can do that has an internet connection, to then creating a magazine is, because I'll be honest, right? There is a file out there called, oh, it's something about like the R2K book or something like that. Like I started writing a book about just living on a farm, right? And it's just a Word document with a brown background. Like it's really like going to make that tangible thing. It's a massive step, and that's considering making two. You know, you're actually trying to create a business out of this. That's I guess the part I'm interested in. You sort of created this blog, which is great. Was it called In the Country the Blog, or was it?
No. So the blog was called It's a Country Life, which was a learning curve because Country Life reached out when we applied for trademarking and weren't happy with it. So, which was a weird situation because we'd obviously, you know, to me, little old me, they felt threatened enough to interfere with what I was doing. So anyway, we changed the name. So we actually published the first magazine as It's a Country Life. And then the second one, we changed the name, we rebranded.
And just tell us about that process. Go, you know, that sort of, right, okay, we're putting it out. Because I can't fathom how that happens. Just some person on their own who's not really into journalism that's went out and done this. What was actually involved in starting that company?
Starting the company was a complete learning curve. I had to do everything. I had to learn everything. I was not, you know, I've always loved writing, but I'm anyone that knows me will know that I'm not great at organization, unlike you, or, you know, kind of pre-planning. I'm very much a open book, which sometimes, you know, has a negative effect, but I knew I wanted to kind of bring people along on the journey with me because I felt like that was the best way to connect with people, to kind of share my story and to build up that excitement and that community around what I was doing. But in terms of putting it together, I mean, I knew I had to set up a business. That was, you know, my dad was very much like, well, you got to do that. So did that. It's fairly easy. But in terms of putting the thing together, I just set about Google, and I kind of, you know, there was a few ideas floating around. Obviously Googled, you know, how do you put a magazine together? And there were different ideas, you know. A lot of some people said, you know, oh, you can do it on Word or you can do it on PowerPoint. And I just knew the kind of person that I am, I wanted to do it properly. And I knew that the magazine that I'd worked with, they didn't design it on Word, you know, they used InDesign, Adobe. So I started to kind of look into that and how I could use that and how I could learn how to use that. And like countless YouTube tutorials later, I started setting it up, designing the pages using InDesign. And I mean, the first one is very boxy, like it's very simplistic. But yeah, it was YouTube tutorials on InDesign. I had a little tablet that clipped into like a keyboard, and I was living with my ex-partner at the time, and we had a little summer house that we lived in, and so I was literally on the arm of the sofa with this tiny little tablet putting a magazine together. And if I look back now and I try to do it now, I can't even imagine it. No way.
I love hearing those stories when someone's got quite a sophisticated thing and it's just where it started. Like, it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's mad. Like, this is a, you know, an iMac and like 2 screens. I can't imagine doing it on that tiny little thing now.
Well, I've got 3 screens in the office, 2 screens here at home, and like the days that I'm working on my laptop, I'm like, but I don't have any space.
Yeah, I couldn't design on my laptop. There's no way. Not
no.
now.
And you started on the tablet. Yeah, it's cool. Where did you get your content?
A lot of it had been Instagram. So in the beginning, obviously, I had very little in terms of contacts. So I thought to myself, you know, what would I like to read? What would I like to see? And I've always used that as quite a benchmark throughout. But then it was very much reaching out to contacts and people who had engaged with me on Instagram and creating stories. And I knew that I wanted it to be relatable. I wanted it to be real. I obviously had these big aspirations for celebrities down the line and things like that, and known figures, but I knew that wasn't now. So yeah, it was really just reaching out and trying to kind of connect people and bring people's stories together into this new publication that I had no idea whether would fly or flop, really.
And well, yeah, tell us what was next. It obviously was successful, and yeah, what did something like, how did you get, I guess, what sort of word I'm looking for here, how do you find an audience in that? Did people come from the blog? I can't imagine they did.
I would just like to quickly interrupt the show for a minute to give you some extra information on our primary sponsors, A-Plan Rural. A-Plan offer bespoke cover for farms and estates the UK over, and will give you tailored insurance for anything on the farm, from your old workhorse tractor that's been around 20 years or a fancy new and exciting diversification.
Yeah, so it was, I did have, and I do have quite a domino effect story when it comes to what happened. Right. So the blog, I mean, honestly, I swear my mum and a few friends would read it, and a few people on Instagram, but there was hardly anything. And the following on Instagram, as you know, like, was slowly growing over a period of time, very, very slowly, with like the consistent posting and the hashtags and things like that. But there was no strategy at that point. It was just very much sharing what I liked, sharing what was happening, and hoping that people might engage, it might resonate. But the magazine, I finished it, I'd opened it for pre-orders, and that was starting to pick up, but the first print run was 250. So I used a printer in London who I'd never met. I'd spoken to them on the phone, and they were great, they were lovely, but lesson learned, always meet them and go and see them. Okay. And so I supplied it as I was told to, and it came back. And I remember being at Hickstead, and I'd waited so long for them to come back, as it's sort of a horse show jumping event. And so I was out for the day, and my mum was at home, and she called me, "Oh, the magazines have arrived. Do you want me to open them?" I said, no, wait till I get home. And I got home, and I was so excited, and I opened the box, and I picked up the first one, and the front cover looked incredible, just like I designed it. But inside, all of the full color pages had a white line along the bottom. And my heart just sank, because I knew I didn't design it that way. I hadn't sent it off that way, and I never intended it to be that way. And people had waited by this point, a couple of months for the thing to kind of actualize. And I had this inner kind of fight with myself, this inner battle, as to whether I send them out as they are, pretend nothing's happened, or I go back to my printers, start that situation, and effectively get another print run. So the driving force that meant that I was going to do that, because I was so stressing about people getting annoyed having waited for so long, was that my old work were going to be looking, and people that wanted to kind of criticize, they would be watching, and they would get hold of it. And I knew that I was better than how it came out. I had my skill, even though it was self-taught, was better than what that finished product had turned out as. So I went back to them, and they agreed that it was their mistake. They hadn't set the bleed and the crop or something up properly. They hadn't done it right. So they actually sent me another 250. So I ended up with 500. So double what I'd ordered. And I sent everybody's who had ordered the pre-orders, I'd sent them out the finished final perfect copies, and they sold out. So what happened was, people who received their copies then posted that on Instagram, tagged me, which then meant that their followers saw it, they then ordered, and it literally was a domino effect. So all of them sold out. We then discounted the error copies, all of them sold out. And it was just absolutely crazy. I mean, the following went from, I don't know, let's say 1,000 to 3,000 in like a week. And then being a quarterly magazine as it was non-stop. So I just had to carry on, and it was on to the next one. And the way that I approach marketing now as a freelancer, and now within any of the projects that I'm doing, it's always with storytelling in mind, and kind of harnessing that power and that energy and creating the connection through telling the story. And that's all that I did. It's all that I did. And it just resonated, and it grew and it grew, really.
How many did you sell in your second release?
The print run of that was 1,000.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So because we'd sold 500, sold 1,000.
And what did you peak at? What was?
It wasn't massive. It never was massive. 2,000 was the generalized print run. We explored shops, and we explored stockists, and when I say shops, I mean like WH Smith, supermarket.
Sure, yeah.
And then we explored like rural farm shops. We had some down where we were, and they were great. They were really great. But in terms of logistics, as a one-woman band, it was just impossible to make work alongside everything else. So yeah, the general print run was 2,000.
But that that's what, 8,000 a year. It's quarterly, did you say?
Yeah.
2 years before, I bet you never thought you'd have a business selling 8,000 units of anything. It's amazing. It's such a cool story, and it's. I think a lot of people are trying their way in journalism in different ways. I mean, I guess I'm one. And posting stories in different forms, whether that's video, written, whatever. And I think for anyone listening, you're sort of that perfect person to listen to and show that, it can happen. It absolutely can. Unfortunately, the joyous COVID came around. What did that mean?
So for me, it was quite an odd one. For everybody it was, but from a business and personal perspective, it was I was kind of at a crossroads, because I could have carried on the magazine. However, it would have had to have changed. And I was adamant from the get-go, when we decided and designed the first one, that it would be perfect bound. It would have this laminate glossy cover. It would look and feel like a proper magazine. And it was more expensive to do it that way, but I knew that that's how I envisaged it. Yeah. And that's how it was going to be. So I could have reduced that. I could have gone to a stapled magazine. I could have reduced the paper. I could have changed it. We could have, removed lots of things, but I knew it wouldn't be in the country. And I was quite adamant about that, rightly or wrongly. But then on the flip side, personally, I mean, when COVID was 3 years ago, so I was 20.
Jesus, yeah.
5.
It'll be 3 years ago about today at the time of filming. Yeah, It was last week. Was it 23rd of March?
Yeah. So 24, 25. And I had, up until that point, from 21, which is when I launched the magazine, I'd sacrificed a lot of personal things, as so many people do when they're launching businesses. And that's not, to say that that's not what we should do, but it's a matter of fact. And, so I was living at home or with partners at the time, and, I'd sacrificed savings and renting renting somewhere. Okay, I had a horse, but that was a non-negotiable. He was never going to be there. Yeah, but other than that, so I kind of just reached a point as COVID kind of reared its head for many, that I couldn't do that anymore, because I wasn't getting anywhere. And I was exhausted, probably. I probably had a little bit of, burnout coming. And advertising basically dried up overnight. A lot of brands had budget saved for the bigger publications, like 50, 60, 100,000 circulation. And we just couldn't compete at that time. Nobody knew what was going on. It was so uncertain for everyone and in so many industries. But I don't blame any of them for not choosing to advertise at that time, because none of us knew what was going on. And so it just became impossible to carry on in the way that it should have been, that do you know what I mean, that it was
well, the way you wanted it to be.
Yeah, it would have had to have changed. And so yeah, I announced that it was going to stop printing, and I was very honest, as I had been the whole way through. I've always tried to be very transparent the whole way through with everybody, and you know, I explained the reasons why, and people were sad. I was sad. I've got, you know, I've got mugs here, I've got magazines here, I look at it every day, I love it, but it just couldn't continue with everything. And then at the same time, I think it was the lockdown, the 21 lockdown, the January 21 lockdown.
It was just the day after Christmas or something like that.
Yeah, it was something like that. I actually signed a contract for a rundown livery yard. So I'd seen it over the last couple of months, and I had no intention at the time of starting a yard. It was just, I'd seen it, I drove past it, I knew the yard, I grew up there as a child, I kept my first pony there as a child, and I lived in the house opposite it. So it was a special yard to me, and I hated seeing it so sad and run down. And I reached out to the who I remembered were the owners, but turns out they weren't the owners anymore because they had died, and posted a letter through a letterbox. And I went back there on the weekend, and like the guy who now lived in the house was there, and I said, oh, I've posted a letter in your letterbox. You know, well, that's going to do no good, it's been, you know, screwed shut for the last 2 years. So he got his drill out and undid it and handed me my letter and told me where to take it. So yeah, so I'd signed the contract, I'd kind of closed on this livery yard, and I had that to fall back on, which again was not intentional, but it just happened. Life has a funny way of doing things like that. So I very much had the kind of idea that I would continue the blogging, continue the digital side of things, and grow this livery yard. Life didn't quite go that way, and I kind of just stopped writing. I can't explain the feeling, but I just lost all love of it. And maybe that's naive, maybe that's slightly immature, you know, you might be like, some people would be like, I could get on with it, but I can't explain it. I'd done it for 4.5 years, and I think I was angry at everybody and everything for it not working, and I didn't enjoy it anymore, and I just couldn't write. I couldn't sit, you know, if I sat myself down with a coffee and said, right, you're going to write this piece, you're going to write this blog, nothing would come.
And if you're at that stage, there's no point in continuing.
Exactly, because it will be rubbish.
Yeah, and you'll turn yourself into what is quite clearly a sort of passionate and positive person into the opposite, you know.
Yeah, and I really the last probably 18 months up until I'd say the last few months, it had not been a positive, motivated place. I was not the Holly Ella that you would have seen on Instagram with the magazine. I think the yard for me had been a distraction and a way of just kind of not thinking about the fact that it hadn't worked and I wasn't enjoying it. And I love the yard, it's fantastic, but writing and magazines and publishing is definitely my passion. So
did you buy the yard or did you rent it?
No, it's rented.
Yeah, that's quite a big thing.
I've never rented anything in my life.
That's a big undertaking. Like,
yeah, so it's 6 stables and 14.5 acres and a school, which was a grass field, which I then had to get put in. But again, weird situation. I think the only way that I got that really was because I knew the yard. I grew up on the yard, and I remember the landlord and we had a walk around, and it was funny. He was like, well, you probably know exactly where you're going. And he brought his daughter along with him, and I mean, she must be like 10 or 11, and I dug out a photo of me at like 9 years old standing on the yard with my pony, and I think that maybe tipped the scales in my favor.
You did that intentionally, didn't you?
I did.
Never read them before, but you knew how to appeal something. Yeah, definitely. So is you're still managing that? Yeah, that's still brilliant.
And that's been a learning curve as well in terms of like, managing the soil and the grass growth and all sorts. It's been, I've learned how to fix fences and just crazy.
And working with soil that horses is on is an added journey because it's they don't take easily to soil. They make it disappear.
No, I have to turn I just can't look sometimes when they're being silly. I'm like, oh my fields.
Yeah, no, exactly. There's one I do a lot of walking, and there's like a raised road that looks right over a livery. Well, it's not a livery yard; it's a livery field, and they clearly don't care about it. Like it's just. It's almost at the point of it's not an issue for the horses, but it's like you're like, I can look at that field, like it's brown. Rotate it a wee bit, please. So yeah, that's brilliant. So how does that work? Do you do is it like DIY livery, or are you actually involved? What's happening there?
So I'm fully involved. So I don't do any DIYs. And that's 2 reasons. It's where the yard is situated is sort of down a private residential road. So the conversations that we had at the beginning were, we don't want to disturb the people that live down the road any more than we need to. And equally from a business point of view, DIY is very hard to make money from, whereas full livery and part livery, which is what I do, there's margins for profit, really.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's a business, that's why you're there.
Yeah.
You've called it on In the Country magazine. Not an easy decision, obviously, but getting to stage that, it had to be the thing to do. Not even purely from a business perspective, just it wasn't fun anymore. But now, 3 years on, still saying that. I know we said it twice. Does not feel like 3 years ago. 3 years on, it could be said that we might be going back to that sort of thing. Maybe writing is coming back in. Do you want to tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, so writing and magazine, I have not been able to let it go. I just absolutely adore it, and I've fought with myself for ways to make it work over the years, and ultimately, I've come to the decision with a lady that I'm partnering with that effectively In the Country can't and shouldn't come back. It's had its time, it's had its place, and it did amazing things. I've grown hugely as a person. It was my identity, effectively a part of my identity for 4.5 years, but it's time for something new. And I'm really excited about that because I'm loving writing again. I'm loving the space again. I'm loving being involved, within the media and journalism and publishing again. And yes, the idea is that there will be a new publication and a new brand this year is the plan.
Similar content to In the Country or no?
Similar in terms of the kind of, like you say, the content is similar. The direction similar, but the way that I've tried to look at it, and I'm telling myself, because we're not 100% set on a name yet, which we sort of briefly spoke about, but it's kind of like In the Country's big sister is how I'm choosing to look at it. So it feels like a natural evolution for me and for the publication. I think this new publication and the voice that we're bringing with it, it has evolved, it has grown, as have I. And so an entirely new publication and title and brand is kind of the best way forward, I think.
I like the way you put that In the Country, it's done and it was a great time, but it's time for a new thing. What I will say is it'll take you some time to shake it's the Country one, because if someone mentions Holly, there's a few people in the sort of Instagram places, but In the Country is the way you're described, I would certainly think.
Yeah, and I have to, you know, I've changed my Instagram handle. I'm actually going to be changing it again. And for a long time it was actually In the Country Insta. And I would have so many people come up to me at shows and be like, "Oh, you're In the Country Insta. You're in the country." And yeah, like you say, I think it will take a long time. And you know, I never want to kind of shut the door on it completely, because it was such a massive part
Yeah.
of my life. But we can set it down now. Whereas even a year ago, I would never have said that. I would never ever have even entertained the idea of a new magazine. It would only have been to kind of revive that. Whereas now I know that that's not the right thing to do.
Well, I mean, I'm having a similar battle currently because R2K, Rural to Kitchen, whatever you want to call it, started on the 12th of April, just after lockdown. That's when it began. And I had an Instagram page with the same name since 2017, but it had like 8 posts on it. Like it was hardly flying, like 7 followers, you know. And it's given me so many opportunities. It got me a job as a lecturer. I get a lot of opportunities at the minute. Like I'm going to be in a motorway billboard at Edinburgh. Like, you know, so many random things. Yeah. Like in the next couple of weeks. I don't even know if I'm supposed to have said that. Fraser, if you're listening, I apologise for bringing that up too early. Just so many random opportunities, getting to meet so many cool folk. You know, yourself being one, obviously, and but it's not. It totally is me. Everything I've done is R2K. I wear a band on it. I've got whatever, but like. I want it to be my name.
Yeah.
I want to be Wallace now. I want to be Holly. I want to be.
Yeah.
And
So I was actually just having a conversation with a freelance client about this the other day, and she was saying, "Oh, well, I'm thinking of different names." She's a coach, different names for the business, and ultimately, and I don't know about you, but the reason I didn't have it as my name for a long time was because I didn't feel confident enough. I maybe didn't feel like I could put my name to it. Whereas now, you know, 5 years down the line, I feel very confident that I'm experienced enough, or I don't know what it is. I just feel like I'm comfortable with it being my name now, whereas I never was before.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's quite interesting. Like, I mean, I'm really interested in social media. Like, I'm looking at doing a PhD in it. Like, I just love it. Yeah, like I'm a nerd for it. Like, total nerd for it. I was speaking to someone recently who's just got a job in social media marketing, and they're really good at it. But I was saying some stuff, and they're like, "How do you know all this stuff?" I'm just really interested in it. But all YouTubers that started like when you were still like a YouTuber, you weren't. You know, it was
Yeah.
it was a weird thing to do at the time. They've all got daft names, yeah. And the tip they give everyone is name your YouTube channel Wallace Curry or Holly Thomson, whatever. And I'm like, am I just going to end up doing it? And then I'm like, but what do I call it? I just call it Wallace. Like, what am I going to call this? Like, it's like a proper battle. Like, you're just Holly.
Yeah.
Really
Currently, I am. And funnily enough, you are the first person to refer to me in a interview sense as Holly Thompson. So thank you.
Well, it's who you are. So.
Yeah. But yeah, my Instagram currently is just Holly, because again, at the time when I changed that, which was when the magazine stopped, I still wasn't quite comfortable with it. But now I definitely am. And from, you know, this new publication, and I'm sure with what you're doing, you know, longevity of the business and the brand, that's a key thing that you have to think about. And I'm going to be Holly Thompson for the whole of my life.
Yeah.
So social media, like you say, is a really strange but interesting thing. And you know, it's constantly evolving, and we've grown up with it, really, in terms of our kind of adulthood. We've grown up with it. We had our childhood without it, but adulthood, we've grown up with it. And I just find it a really interesting space, like you say, that we're going to live on it for a long period of time. So we have to consider how we project ourselves on there. And that really is a kind of reason why I want to change mine now. But I guess similar to you, like I'm going to have multiple accounts. So my current one, Just Holly, which has the kind of significant number of followers which were grown from in the country will stay as me, whereas this new brand will have a new account with, you know, minimal followers, which will hopefully grow. But again, as I'm sure you're aware, you know, having a smaller account with less followers can actually be more influential in some ways than a larger account with more followers.
Well, everyone goes down the 2 account thing now, don't they? I from a I think you mentioned a quite organized perspective, I hate it. Like, no, why can't I consolidate everything in one place? And I was like, I actually have a question actually to ask on the sort of social media side, engagement side. You mentioned earlier sort of about consistent posting, prolific posting, and hashtags. Now, I said I started the 12th of April. From the 12th of April 2020 until the 7th of January this year, I didn't miss one weekday posting.
Wow.
Yeah, and the only reason I didn't stop, I still post probably about 6 or 7 times a week, but every single day I never post one, apart from I posted one thing and my mum got angry at me, told me to take it down. That was the only time that was missed. Like, I built my thing on sort of this prolific content creation. Probably the reason I changed was I was like, I don't think all of this is good. I think I'm now in this rut where I'm like, I have to post and it doesn't actually mean anything. And now my account has went from like, I was a chef, has went from being sort of like food based, where I still try and do that, but my diet is now very boring in that I'm very sort of gym based and only really drink out of drink smoothies and stuff. So it's kind of boring.
You're way better than me. I love it.
Well, that's a good thing though. Trust me, it's so much more. People don't like to look at a pink smoothie. They want to look at Alfresia or something. And then you sort of transition. But I guess the question I'm going to ask is you mentioned about hashtags, and hashtags is one thing I have never done. Like, is it a massive change? It's just, I can't be bothered. Like, it's such an annoying thing.
I probably have a slightly unconventional way of using social media, and I say it to my freelancers and my friends, is that as much as Instagram you and encourages you to post every single day, which they've recently changed the focus from reels to static posts every single day is apparently what's going to favor your content.
They keep changing. Like, it was reels for like a year, and then
but people don't want reels on Instagram. That's the thing. They want it to go back to how it was, back to its roots, and be that lovely kind of portfolio space. But it's not realistic, especially as busy people, you know, people who work outside, you know, often we're working with our hands, we're not just sat at desks all the time. So it's just unrealistic. And I have always, you know, I've been told off so many times for not posting that or not sharing that I was here and blah blah blah. But I'm enjoying the moment was always my kind of excuse. But I guess what I'm trying to say is hashtags are great. I do think they are great. However, my largest engagement spikes that I have had have come after a few days off, a week off of posting. And it kind of has shown me that, you know, you don't need to post everything. You know, it's great if you do for building, and my account's kind of stagnated for probably 2 years now, but it's more about the community that you're nurturing. I think if you're nurturing that community and you're engaging yourself and kind of showing up as a real person, then you're gonna have success on the platform. I try really hard not to let myself get too sucked into the algorithms, this, that, you know, you must do this, you must do that, and because otherwise it's gonna distract and distract from my life, and the way that I want to live my life, which is outdoors with animals and kind of appreciating what's around me. And then when I'm tired after the end of a long day, I just want to chill out. Just want to chill out. I used to, you know, when I first started, the first couple of years, I was religiously probably every weekday I was on Twitter doing the hours, you know, the hashtag hours, and that probably helped me get recognized as a Small Business Sunday winner by Theo Pafitis, because I consistently showed up and did that. But my approach to Instagram is very different nowadays, and rightly or wrongly, I don't really know, but I do think the key is to just don't let it rule your life. Because, and I often see like so many small business owners or aspiring entrepreneurs, like they're so kind of desperate to succeed on the platforms that they've done so much research and so much looking into it, and it's kind of, you can tell it's stressing them out because they feel they need to be performing on there, that actually they're probably better off using that energy on growing their physical business or doing things within their business rather than just social media.
And it just quickly, what I heard, I think you cut out for a second. What did you say about Theo Pafitis?
So I won, he runs a Small Business Sunday Awards.
Right.
And originally they were just run on Twitter, but I've been told recently that they're also on Instagram. Sorry, my puppy is making a noise.
Oh my God, and he's been so quiet.
She's very good.
Yeah.
But yes, no, so sorry, I won, so X Dragon's Den, Theo Pafitis runs a competition weekly to recognise small businesses. And years ago, I was chosen as a winner amongst lots of other people. And it allows you to go to a yearly like conference, awards winners conference, and kind of just be part of this winners community. But that was through Twitter every single week, showing up on the hour and engaging with other people. And so like I'm probably kind of, what's the word, contradicting myself a little bit, but I just think
changes over time, and plus that's absolute play down of the century. Oh yeah, just won that. And,
no, but it's true, and I guess I my biggest thing is don't let it rule you, because I have reached where I am organically. I mean, I've probably done like 5 paid ads, and they've been for product sales, not exposure, not growing the profile or anything like that, purely organically, and from telling that story and bringing people along on that journey with me, that I haven't posted every day. There's been weeks when I haven't posted. I mean, especially over the last few years, but then again, it hasn't gone anywhere in the last few years, but I don't want it to. There might be a little bit more strategy when I'm launching this new account, but I just think I just wish people would not get too sucked into it, really.
I hope you've kicked your feet up and got comfy and enjoying another fantastic episode of the R2Kast with another really interesting guest. I would just like to quickly take another second to plug the sponsors of the show today, the Scottish Farmer, and I would strongly advise you to go out and pick one up this week and see even more of the fantastic people that are in our industry.
I think when I interviewed Ollie Blogs, who you may or may not know, he was R2Kast 89 just a few weeks ago. He said one thing that was so true, because we did it live on Instagram.
Okay.
Someone had said, what's your tips for getting into YouTube? Because he's a big YouTuber. And he was like, get into YouTube because you enjoy it. Don't get into YouTube to make money. You can make a ridiculous amount of money, but do not make that the reason, because to make that money, you have to be insanely consistent. And to do that, you need to enjoy it. And I have never heard anything so true. Like, I am addicted to this. I think personally healthily addicted, but just about everyone that speaks to me thinks unhealthily addicted. Like, my screen time this week was 15 hours a day, right? So I sleep for about 2 hours a night, right? But so I'll go. We'll finish this recording. What time we at? About 8 o'clock. I'll probably go to the gym, and then I'll probably go a half marathon. And on that half marathon, I'll just do all this stuff. I'll edit this video. It'll be uploaded tonight. Like, I love it. I absolutely love doing this stuff. But if you don't have that, it's going to kill you. Yeah, you can't do it.
And I definitely, in the early days, I think part of the reason me and my ex broke up was probably because I had 0 attention and I was so busy on this, but on the magazine. But you had, like you say, you have to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And if you, and again, another reason I couldn't write, I just could not sit down and do it because I no longer enjoyed it. Whereas now with this new like project, this new brand, everything, I'm so excited. We have WhatsApp messages pinging all hours of the day, and it's exciting. I love it. I've missed it, and I know it's what I want to do. But again, unless you have that feeling, you can't force it, because it will show, and equally it will impact you mentally and physically.
And I think listening to you, I think we are quite similar in this sense. Like, I'm perfectly aware that if I do get to stage that I just don't enjoy it, I'm going to stop. Yeah, I can't see it, but also what I need to do is not do the same thing. Like, this podcast has changed over the years. It was fortnightly, then weekly, then 6 every 4 weeks, and then I'm not going to say what you and I spoke about off camera because I haven't told anyone yet, but there's another change coming. Like, it's consistently been updated. I couldn't just do the exact same thing. I've always got to try something new, and still keeping on that sort of similar path, But yeah, it's got to be good. Like, it's got to be. And I really took on board what Ollie said. Like, if you're not, that was Ollie, not Holly. If you're not loving it, it's not going to continue.
No, and I think that's like, I look at it sometimes as like the kind of plague of being an entrepreneur is that you constantly want things to develop, you want to evolve things, you want to change things, and you want to get to that next stage. And I listen to Stephen Bartlett quite a lot, and he shared something recently about wanting to get to that next stage, but it shouldn't all be about that. You kind of need to. It's a weird one. It's a really weird one. Entrepreneurs are strange.
I think I know what you're saying. And it was when I started. So I'm about 4 stone down, right? I used to be huge. I think most folk would probably still say I am. Turn up to play game of football, they think I'm the ball. Oh, thank you. But like, since August time, I've really started looking at nutrition, understanding all that sort of thing. And one of my mates who's a PT gave me some tips, and that was really much appreciated. But one thing he said, and it's been massive for me, and I've heard it a million times, it's just never resonated, was like, don't focus on the outcome, focus on enjoying the process. And it is so true. Like, so it's insane that it's exactly what I just said about that YouTube thing. It's the same thing. And listening to folk like Stephen Bartlett and stuff like that, it's quite cool to look into their mind. And it's interesting you say entrepreneur, because that's what you are. Like, I'm not that. I don't have that. Like, I have an extremely stable job, a job that I know I'm relatively good at, and I know what I will progress in, and it's good money. Like, this is a privilege, yeah. But to be in your position where so much is based on what you're doing, that's got to add more to it as well. Like, and you're like, more than I just need to enjoy this because I keep going. If I stop tomorrow, oh well. But if you stop, you're losing such a massive part, and that goes from the magazine perspective, from the livery perspective as well. Because is your income from what's going to be this magazine and livery? There's no.
So the yard predominantly, and freelancing. I'm again, 5 years older. The way that I look at this new project is that it's in the country was needed to, I needed to live off of that as well, and I didn't have the yard then, and so this new project, it's a project. It's going to be a business, but it's a project, and it needs to have its own lifeline. So for me, the freelancing and the yard is my income, so that I can put everything that I have into this project.
Yes,
was not the case before. And you say you're not an entrepreneur. I would say that you are. If you're.
Oh, I'm not. I would totally disagree.
Do you really?
Well, on what basis am I an entrepreneur?
Because you started a podcast, which is obviously earning you money. I'd say that's entrepreneurial.
I feel like entrepreneurial is. I feel like there's more weight to it. I feel like it's it's about to get deep, isn't it? I feel like to be an entrepreneur, you have to, like, if my podcast disappears, I'd be gutted, but I'd be fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, cost of living crisis isn't going to hit me that hard. Like, I'll be fine. But I feel like that's a massive part of entrepreneurial. I think owning a business that is, or businesses, that without them you can't continue. I feel like that's a massive part of that, but maybe I'm looking into it wrong.
No, I do kind of agree, and also, I guess knowing that you, like, I would really struggle to work for someone else now. I think I'm so driven. The way that I work is so kind of on my own time, and I answer to myself, and obviously this lady who's partnering with me, but generally it's I answer to myself. And actually I think perhaps we have maybe a different attitude or approach to work. Maybe
there's two sides to that. I wouldn't want to work for someone, I wouldn't like to work for a quote unquote business. A university is a business, but like, my job is, I am absolutely not my own boss. I have a boss, but it's like, I do my job. I create the content on my own. I teach it on my own. I don't have a boss in there with me. I don't do anything like that. Apart from meetings and sort of helping each other through things, he's more of a friend. Yeah. So I don't see the people I see I'm working for as the students. And that is just a pleasure that I would never want to lose. Like I say, that in itself is amazing. Could I work for a company like the job you were doing there before? Apart from the fact it's almost competition to you now, obviously it's different, but like I worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car before, because that's what every agricultural graduate does. Could I work for that sort of company? Absolutely not. They're a horrible company. And I probably shouldn't say that out loud, but here we are. Yeah, I couldn't. I agree with that.
I guess I get what your job is meaningful. You have a purpose, and what you're doing is meaningful to people, whereas and I guess that's subjective, but I get what you're saying though. I would struggle if it was like some sort of life-changing horse organization, then I could probably do it, but I would still struggle to be told what to do.
That's the thing though, I don't really think I'm ever told what to do.
Okay.
You're guided, you're like, oh, whatever. But, and John, if you're listening to this and you just think I don't do what you're saying, I apologize. But I feel like, it's just you're sort of guided, but it's totally what you want to do, because at the end of the day, you're the person standing in front of someone for 3 hours. No one can tell you how to do that. I can't tell you how to do that. You can tell me, because we do it differently. So that here we're talking about something that's sorry. Here we've sort of round the career and whatever they're holding. But one thing that I probably should have asked more about is your passion throughout this is horses. Journalism has came in and it has played a big part in it. It's you now, but horses in general is where it kicked off, and horses are still involved. So tell us a bit about your life with horses at the minute, even away from the livery yard. You're competing. You mentioned. How much involvement do you have in horses on a recreational basis these days?
So horses is every single day.
And
it's a massive commitment, it's a massive responsibility, but I genuinely don't think I could imagine my life without them. Don't get me wrong, I love a break. I'm actually going on holiday for the first time in over 5 years, abroad. So it's the first time I've left my yard to go to another country in 5 years.
Wow.
Well, since I've had the yard, but abroad for a long time, and I cannot wait. But I guarantee halfway through I will want to come back. And I'm actually going away this weekend to just get away, and that's lovely. But I will enjoy being back on Monday. And I'm not someone who's competed. I don't, because one, I've never been in a position, my family's never been in a position to financially afford it. I've got 2 sisters as well who are not interested in horses, so balancing my passion, which was time consuming and expensive, was always a juggle growing up, and so I could only have so much of it, understandably. And then into adulthood, when it's my own money, it's I can't afford it, and that's not why I love horses. I'm not really a competitive person by nature. I just love being around them, taking care of them, and I find them absolutely beautiful, breathtaking creatures that are generally calming, but when they are annoying and they're on one, my god, do they know how to wind you up. But yeah, I love going out for 4 hours, of a summer evening or a weekend on my horse, and it's just absolutely, there's nothing else like it. But I'm very lucky with my horse. I've had him since he was 3. I've broken him in myself. He was turned away when I went to New Zealand to kind of mature and grow up a little bit after being broken in. And since I've come back, I've obviously, been on this entrepreneurial journey, building things, pivoting all the time. And he's been picked up and put down a fair amount of times in terms of work. And he's just so good. He's a kind-natured horse in that sense, that he doesn't need work 6 days a week. He lives out, he's quite happy. I mean, I've got 6 stables, but he lives out, he doesn't have a stable. But yeah, for me, horses they're just a part of my life, they're a part of me, and riding them is a bonus, but that's not why I do it.
Yeah, having that sort of emotional constant is important throughout. Like, would you class your horse as a pet?
See, I don't know. I mean, he ultimately
For sure.
is,
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
but is he a pet?
I don't know what else you would say, but
He's kind of like, he's like you just said, he's a constant in my life. I feel like I just fund his existence. I couldn't imagine him not being there, but I don't know if I maybe have quite as conventional idea of horse ownership as some people. He's not overly spoiled. He doesn't get matchy sets of this and that and the latest rugs. He does not. He's a horse. He wants for nothing, just clearing that up. But he's not. I don't spend every penny on him. But he's part of my life, and I would never.
The truth is, the horse doesn't care what color it's, whatever it is.
No.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I've asked a few folk that about horses. Do they class it as a pet? And I don't really know what the other answer might be.
I was going to say, what do they say?
Well, I don't think you really fully gave a word. You said, I don't know. Yeah, I guess he's a constant, but like, I'm guessing you class your puppy as a.
My puppy is a pet. Yes.
Yeah. Like, pet's a really interesting word to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Have pet.
You don't have pets?
No, and it's purely, I've had partners in the past that think it's because I don't like animals. I absolutely adore animals. The issue is, I think people have pets when they don't do them justice. And I know I am away from here all the time, and I know I wouldn't do a pet justice. One of my dreams is to my family own a pretty big farm, and going home to that is what I'll be doing next week for lambing time. And if you do follow me on TikTok, I don't know, have a look. I have trained my cat to jump up. Like, cats are my thing. I love cats.
Oh, you'd love my cat then.
I've got a yard cat. Every single one of them. I've got quite a few followers on Snapchat that I so as I said, I walk a lot, and because I do it at night, like, there's cats out, and I've met like 5 or 6 cats that I genuinely know. It's just great friends with these. I'm going to get put in an asylum one day if I get caught. Yeah, absolutely love cats, but I think you need to sort of be able to offer them the right life, and you obviously are with.
Yeah,
with your,
no, I agree. I do agree with that in terms of offering them the right life. And Nelly, I got her. She's 10 months old. I got her last year, and I got her when I really needed.
Yeah.
I mean, she's not a person, but I needed something that was going to get me out the house all the time, have my attention, have my affection, and just keep me constant, because I love dogs more than horses. I love dogs, and I hadn't been able to have one of my own, and I needed one last year. I had a really awful year, and so she's come into my life, and I would definitely class her as a pet, but equally I would not have got her if I didn't have my yard. and I was just living at home.
Yeah, for sure.
She has, she runs around all day, has that life, and she comes to Wales with me and goes on walks and things like that. And Simba, my horse, and Pumbaa the cat, he just roams. He roams the yard and he loves it, and he just has the best life. And Simba's the same, but if I couldn't afford him and give him the life that he needed, my dad's listening to this, he'll be like, and go on. But no, because
can you afford it, Holly?
I was going to say, I would make sure that I could afford him.
Yeah, for sure.
No, it wouldn't be a question, because he is part of my life.
I'll start another magazine.
yeah. So, I'll start this and I'll start that just to keep the horse. But yeah, I mean, if he was suffering because I couldn't afford it, I would ensure that I could. I'd go and make sure I could.
I'm about to ask you a question that, given the name of your horse and cat, is going to offend you. So I've never seen Lion King. I know they're out of that. Is Nelly a thing in the Lion King?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, Nelly's not. She was going to be called Nala out of the Lion King, but we had a horse at the yard called Nala, and I couldn't do that.
Okay.
The idea is to get another cat at some point and call it Timon.
I've never heard. I'm guessing that's in the Lion King.
God.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I've just
yeah, Timon and Pumbaa are like the little duo. So yeah, that's the plan.
Isn't that what Farmer Will, the guy who was in Love Island's pigs, are called?
Oh, I hope not.
I think they are.
Really my idea then.
I am
so I
I'm positive. I loved the 2018 Love Island. Like, I didn't miss one. Right?
Is that the one with Chris and Cam?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Why does everyone watch it?
I loved that one.
What happened in 2018 that made everyone watch it? What's his name? Farmer Will. Let's go, because he's just came out of the. I was going to say the jungle. It's not a jungle.
Yes, with Jessie. I literally saw a TikTok earlier of the two of them. I think with the pigs.
Do you watch Love Island?
No, I haven't watched it since the 2018 one.
Right, where are we? I think this is the video. That's a lamb. No, it's Will crawling through the.
Oh yeah, maybe it was a lamb.
Is it lambs? Is it?
She falls down into the bed.
Do you know? Have you ever seen the Tweenies?
Yes.
Will sounds like. Yeah, the pigs, Timon and Pumbaa. Will sounds like the one with the tall hair.
Oh, wouldn't even know.
Was it Max? Jack?
Oh.
I'm hopefully getting Will on the podcast. I want to say this to him.
The pigs,
right.
And what Jesse's got to do is basically feed the pigs. And the
it's exactly that.
Yeah, have you seen the comment section? It's saying that he should become a CBeebies presenter because he's got that presenting voice all of a sudden.
Yeah. He does, yeah. And Jesse's going to meet the lambs. Yeah, yeah. I'll be here. I don't watch Love Island, but I find it quite entertaining. No, here, Holly, it's been great to chat. As I said at the start, these things normally fly by. I don't know if you'll believe this or not, but we have currently been speaking for over an hour and 20 minutes. Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry.
Not at all. Here, that's brilliant. And I apologise. I don't edit it at all. Well, edit it. I'll take the bits at the start out when I'm like, just so you know, I'm going to say welcome back. But up until then, there is two questions I ask everyone at the start. Nope, this is the end. At the end of every podcast, and it's one is where do you see yourself in 5 years, and two is and this is a good question because you've done a lot of things. If you had any tips or advice for folk coming into industry, so let's look at journalism, let's look at everything you've done. What would they be?
Which one do I do first?
Oh, you choose. That's exciting.
Okay, I'll do the second one first. So advice. My advice would be to, without sounding cliche, believe in yourself. But when I say believe in yourself, go for it. I made a lot of my connections from reaching out and asking people and putting myself in front of people, suggesting my ideas and putting my work out there and believing, I guess, in my abilities. That would be my advice. If you wanted to get into journalism, for example, write, put it out there and reach out to people that may be able to help you on that. And off the back of that, be kind to everybody. You know, I was interviewing somebody else the other day, and you know, we were talking about giving people advice and helping people, and we both said that during our journeys we've faced some not very nice, you know, experiences with perhaps older people who are established within the industry.
Yeah.
And I think being nice to anyone that you can and helping them along the journey with you is so important, because we're all trying to get to the same place. We all want happiness, and we all want, you know, to just enjoy life, and you're not going to get there if you're nasty to people, or you're knocking people down or ignoring people. You know, it's
more.
Yeah. And where do I see myself in 5 years? Hopefully 5 years down the line with this new brand, this new title, this new publication. But I think for me, I want to, and whether this is kind of like a podcasty response, I'm not sure, I want to kind of carve out my own space, because I've sacrificed that for a good few years now, and I'm ready to kind of establish myself in terms of, you know, somewhere to live and just a bit more stability in my life, which I've really been trying to work on in terms of routine and structure, and definitely going back to New Zealand, because that is so important to me. And yeah, I really I'd like to go there like once a year, once every other year if I could, but prioritizing that for me is important. So yeah, where do I see myself in 5 years? Hopefully just happy and kind of settled, as much as settled can be, because I don't really know.
Fully settled's boring though, isn't it?
Yeah, fully settled boring, don't get me wrong, but just like,
yeah, I know
less craziness.
Yeah, and I love when folks say like happy or doing something similar to what they're doing, because that's good. But the settled's an interesting one. I like the idea of settled, but then I stop for 8 minutes and I go crazy.
Yeah, so when I say settled, I guess I'm saying settled and I'm envisioning settled, but I don't quite know what settled looks like. So maybe happy is a better
Good one. Yeah.
explanation.
And when you say about getting your own space, do you mean like getting a house, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might take me 5 years because of the current situation of everything.
Yeah. Well, do you know, it's funny. Like, I mean, I don't mean to make you feel bad or whatever, but I managed to get my flat on an interest rate of 1.58%.
But you live in Scotland, and you've just said you live on an island.
No, I don't. I bought not on an island.
Oh, okay, but still
if I was to buy, yeah, just right on the border. But yeah, if I was to buy on the island I'm from, it would probably cost me about 5 times more.
Well,
so,
I live in one of the most expensive places in the UK. Apparently, there was an article in one of the latest local magazines that said Chichester is the best place to live, and I couldn't help.
If you have £1 million.
Yeah, why? How is it the best place to live? Definitely not for like 20 to 30-year-olds. Absolutely not.
Why don't you just sacrifice the income of one stable and renovate it?
I've had this idea. I've told my dad this, and he said I'm absolutely crazy and I should just get back to reality.
Crazy, I genuinely don't.
I think it's a great idea, but no, he didn't agree.
And here, Instagram followers would fly watching a stable renovation.
I'd work on it. That's another one time I've gone viral, is that TikTok about the yard transformation. Yeah, but I like the stable idea.
Wait a minute, was that on TikTok?
Yeah.
No. I think I saw that, but I didn't know it was you. What's your name on TikTok? Is it?
Oh, I think it's in the country, maybe.
It's still in the country. You can't change it.
I'd only just hang on. Oh no, just Holly.
That is just Holly.
Yeah.
That must be really annoying when you're explaining that to folk and they just write Holly.
Yeah, I mean, that's again another reason why it just needs to be changed, because
it's
kind of impractical now.
103,000 views. Wow. Jeez. Yeah, I've liked it.
So yeah, I don't know what I was saying then, but yeah.
No, Brilliant. Here, no, Holly, it's been an absolute pleasure. As I said, I've been a follower for, I generally don't know, but since before R2K was a thing, so before 2020, I have been a follower. My ex was a massive fan, and I just came across it, and yeah, so been following for some time. Very much one of those meeting the celebrities moment for me. It's been a pleasure to chat to you. It's really
it's been lovely. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Not at all. Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. We have spoke for, well, an hour and a half. It does sort of fly, but it's kind of weird actually. Sometimes, like, you know, when I started this podcast, I like write the time down every time we've kicked off at, and I'm like trying to get the first 20 minutes, like, oh, I hope this is going to happen. And now I'm just like, I know it's going to be a duration of time. Like, I look down and I'm like, oh, so we spoke for 300 days. You know, it just flies by. No, absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much. It's been great. As I said, for those of you listening, last week we had Henry Bung on talking about Fungium Farms, a community farm in Cameroon. So that now takes us to 4 continents that we've recorded with. So recorded in Canada and the States, we've recorded in the UK, obviously, so Europe and Iceland and France. In Africa, we've done Cameroon, Zimbabwe. There's one more, that's terrible. Rwanda, yeah, we spoke to the food and farming lead for Rwanda and policy. Yeah, quite a random one that. And then we've done Australia and New Zealand, so we've really got to tick off South America and Asia. So if you know of any English-speaking people there, because I am rubbish at speaking other languages, that would be excellent. And I don't think we're going to find many folk in Antarctica. Try and get some more stories there. Next week, as I said, we had we'll have Thorfinn Armstrong talking about if there's any free money sitting around in your business that could go into some R&D, or you could just try and get some extra money. I'm not going to say all the fancy words because I don't really know how it works. Thorfinn will explain it much better than I will. That will be episode number 95, and that means we are very close to 100. There is a big announcement coming for the 100th episode. I will maybe release it. I'll give you a clue at the minute. The guest is someone you have seen many a time on the R2Kast. That is what I will give you the clue of. That's the first clue I've given publicly, so you can try and work out who you're going to be hearing about in R2Kast 100. But thank you as always for listening, Holly. It's been a pleasure. I hope you've enjoyed yourself.
I've had a lovely time. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Not a problem. And we shall see you next week for Thorfinn Armstrong. Thank you very much for listening.
I hope you've enjoyed another excellent episode of the R2Kast. I just want to take this moment to quickly thank our primary sponsors once more, A-Plan Rural. If you follow A-Plan on social media, you'll see the work they're doing to really promote British farming and back our industry. It's been a pleasure working alongside A-Plan Rural so far, and long may it continue. The values of A-Plan Rural runs perfectly in line with the whole mantra of Rural to Kitchen, and I'm glad to have them on board. Check them out on Instagram at A-Plan Rural and on Facebook at A-Plan Rural Insurance. See you for the next podcast.